Hello, everyone. I'm not quite sure if we're going yet. Oh, yeah, we're going. We're going. Looks like there was one person on. Now it says 0. We'll wait for a second. Oh, maybe 2 people now. If you're on, there might be a chat feature. And you could simply just say if you're on, who you are, and we'll get going in a few minutes here. Well, not a few minutes, a few moments, I should say. In the background, you may be hearing something. I sort of hope you are, but I hope it's sort of faint. I'm playing just from YouTube, a Greek Orthodox Byzantine liturgy. So it's sort of a sung, chanted liturgy, and I thought that would be good to have in the background today as we do our scribing session. So I will go ahead and get going. I'm glad you could all join us here for the Scribing Challenge, session 2 of the Scribing Challenge. Last week we started doing Luke chapter 19, and we did the first part of it live, and then I suggested that over the weekend people scribe on their own the text of Jesus's entry into Jerusalem, as well as then it goes on from there that Jesus weeps over Jerusalem and then Jesus cleanses the temple. And so it took me 3 full columns, 1, 2, 3 full columns in my Piccadilly notebook, and a little bit more. And so then I just put my next heading title there, right there, Luke 20. And we will sort of do the same format again today. We will go for about a half hour, 40 minutes, and we will see as far as we get. And then whatever we don't complete in this session, I encourage you to complete at another time today. And because by the end of the day today, to stay on our schedule, want to scribe all of Luke chapter 20. So again, we're doing this as a way to just engage our faith in different ways, and maybe a different kind of way, since many of us are sheltered in place and we're trying to avoid spreading the coronavirus, and we aren't able to meet regularly as a church as we typically do. But today we come together to engage our faith by scribing. And scribing is simply a way of saying we stop, we slow down, and we write out the scriptures. Part of what we want to do here is, it's not about, and you might have seen my daughter Rosalind come in and out of my office. She's with me here today. Scribing isn't about answering all questions. It's not about in-depth Bible study. We might encounter passages that we don't fully understand, or maybe they don't feel like we like. Maybe we encounter passages that really we want to spend more time in, and all that's good and legitimate. But for this time being, the point of scribing is simply to engage the text in a slow, methodical way, and to write it out. And so it looks like there's about 3 people on the YouTube live session right now. That's great, and others may watch it at other times. But as we begin, take a few deep breaths and slow yourself down. And I remind us all of the passage in Matthew where, after Jesus told several parables, he ends by saying, "Every scribe who is trained for the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who brings out treasures old and new." And so let us begin scribing Luke chapter 20. One day, as he was teaching the people in the temple, and telling the good news. The chief priests and the scribes came with the elders and said to him, "Tell us, by what authority are you doing these things?" And I'll pause right here. I should have said at the beginning that I am using the NRSV version. And I find it helpful when I scribe to speak a phrase aloud. It helps me remember it so that I don't have to look in the text word by word to write it down, but I can write sort of a phrase at a time. And so I read it aloud and then scribe it. It helps me remember it and retain the phrase as I go throughout it. I can understand, however, if it's a little bit different than the version that you're using, if it might create some dissonance for you. And so if that's the case, you can simply turn the volume off. But I am scribing using the NRSV. Who is it who gave you this authority? He answered them, "I will also ask you a question, and you tell me. Did the baptism of John come from heaven, or was it of human origin?" They discussed it with one another, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say, 'Why did you not believe him?' But if we say of human origin, all the people will stone us." For they are convinced that John was a prophet. So they answered that they did not know where it came from. Then Jesus said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things." All right, so we finished that section, the authority of Jesus questioned. Now, I don't scribe the section titles when I do in my Bible. I just do the actual words of Scripture. But it's sort of nice as a progress. You can see your progress when you just sort of note, okay, I did this section, I did this story, on and on, sort of thing. So again, reminder that we're scribing here as a way to slow ourselves down, to engage the Scripture in a different way than maybe we're typically doing it, and in a way that's not answering all the questions, but just sort of taking it in, working through it. Again, I'm using the NRSV Bible, and also, as I mentioned in the beginning, I don't know how well it's coming through, but I am playing some Greek Orthodox Byzantine chant in the background from their liturgy. It's just one of the things that was posted on YouTube. I find it's helpful to have something meditative in the background, but also not in English, because if it's in English, then I find that I key into certain words or phrases, and that can interfere with the scribing. So this way, I don't even understand what's being said, but it's meditative, it's worshipful, and it just creates a little bit more than just the bare silence whenever we're engaging the text here. So, picking up in verse 9, continuing to work our way through these Holy Week stories in the Gospel of Luke. He began to tell the people this parable. A man planted a vineyard and leased it to tenants. And went to another country for a long time. When the season came, he sent a slave to the tenants. In order that they might give him his share of the produce of the vineyard. But the tenants beat him and sent him away empty-handed. Next, he sent another slave. That one also they beat and insulted and sent away empty-handed. And he sent still a third. This one also they wounded and threw out. Then the owner of the vineyard said, "What shall I do? I will send my beloved son. Perhaps they will respect him." But when the tenants saw him, they said, This is the heir. Let us kill him, so that the inheritance may be ours." So they threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. What then will the owner of the vineyard do to them? He will come and destroy those tenants and give the vineyard to others. When they heard this, they said, whoops. Of course, there's always a chance that you make a mistake while scribing. Just scribble it out and keep going. Heaven forbid. But he looked at them and said, "What then does this text mean?" Now we're coming to a little section here, at least in my Bible, it's a scripture quote, and the text is, offset a little bit in more of a poetic version or poetic way of writing the text. In order to save space, I don't necessarily write it out in poetic form, but if you want to do that, that's certainly fine. Okay, so what then does this text mean? The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Everyone who falls on that stone will be broken to pieces. And it will crush anyone on whom it falls. When the scribes and the chief priests realized that he had told this parable against them, they wanted to lay hands on him at that very hour. But they feared the people. All right, so we've done two pericopes. The pericope is just a fancy word for section of text. So we've done two. We've done the authority of Jesus in question from Luke 21-8, and then we did the parable of the wicked tenants from Luke 29-19. I think we'll go ahead and do one more, the question about paying taxes from Luke 20-26. So they watched him and sent spies who pretended to be honest. In order to trap him by what he said. So as to hand him over to the jurisdiction and authority of the governor. So they asked him, "Teacher, we know that you are right in what you say and teach." And you show deference to no one. But teach the way of God in accordance with truth. Is it lawful for us to pay taxes to the emperor or not? But he perceived their craftiness and said to them, "Show me a denarius." And of course, a denarius is just a Greek coin. Whose head and whose title does it bear? They said, "The emperor's." He said to them, "Then give to the emperor the things that are the emperor's." And to God the things that are God's. and they were not able, in the presence of the people, to trap him by what he said. And being amazed by his answer, they became silent. All right. So we've arrived at about halfway through Luke chapter 20. We've scribed Luke chapter 21 to 26, which leaves about 21 more verses. At this point, I will end the session, and whether or not you want to continue on your own till you complete it, maybe another hour or another half hour, or whether you want to take a break and come back to it later today, it's your choice. But in order to stay on schedule and to be able to scribe the whole of the Holy Week stories here between now and Easter Sunday, tomorrow we're going to pick up with Luke chapter 21. So try to stay up to it. Even myself, I'm going to find another time to do this today. But let's try to keep going. Let's see if we can do this. I thank you, all three of you, who have stayed with us the whole time, and maybe there will be other people who watch later. If you were on this live stream and it worked well, or if things didn't work well, please feel free to email me or leave a comment with that feedback. Specifically this week, I tried just playing some Greek Orthodox chant in the background to create a little bit of a worship atmosphere without being too distracting. I don't know how that sounds on your end or if that worked, but you could drop me a line about that to let me know. And yeah, I thank you for joining, and just encourage you to continue to stay engaged with the scriptures here while we are all sheltering in place. And yeah, it's just a unique challenge to do here as we anticipate the coming of Easter. One other thing is that when you are finally done scribing this chapter, I encourage you to go back and read it again in your own handwriting. There is something special, I think, about reading the text that you've written in your own hand. And I also believe that it helps to internalize it more, because not only are you reading it and perhaps speaking it out loud as you write it, and then you are writing it, and then you are reading again, but it's also in your own handwriting. I think all of those elements combine to really internalize the scripture in some deep ways that maybe we don't see the impact of immediately, but I think it lodges it in our heart and our soul in deeper ways. So be sure to read it once you're all done. Read it back through in your own handwriting. So until next time, grace and peace be with you.